I'm decoupaging 3 projects today using old maps. So if you've got old maps in your house, this is the video for you. Welcome to my crafting channel. I'm Alana from Upcycling NZ. For project 1, I got the cutest thing from my friend Deb. She gave me this little school suitcase. I just think it's absolutely adorable. It's got some water damage and writing on the lid, and it was full of these beautiful old tools. Lots of old antique scissors and various other tools which I will use in future projects. They're fully functional and have the wonderful patina that antiques have. There's even a little razor blade in here, and I'll even make use of that later. So big shout out to Debbie, my Australian girl fan. Thank you so much. I'm taking a vacuum cleaner and I'm going to clean out all of the loose paint and dust out of this suitcase. I'll take some wet wipes and give it a really good clean and dust. Next, I'm making doubly sure there's no dust left in this suitcase with a microfiber cloth. I don't want any air bubbles or dust particles causing bubbles underneath my decoupage. I'll put a layer of chalk paint on. These are my homemade chalk paints, and this one's in the colour Michelle. If you want to see how I make my homemade chalk paints, I'll put a link down in the description for you. And trust me, if you do a lot of crafting, it will save you so much money on chalk paints. You'll notice that I'm leaving the reinforced rim around the lid of the suitcase unpainted, and that's so that you can see those lovely stitching details and the old colour of the suitcase. I'll do the same thing to the base of it. Now, before you freak out about that bright white on this beautiful antique suitcase, I'm going to be covering this with decoupage paper, and it's a vintage style. The white paint's just going to serve as a background. It's going to be completely covered by my paper. I'm getting a little bit of bleed through from one place underneath the paint here on the suitcase, but I'll address that later. I'm just cleaning off any paint I got on the rim. This is the beautiful paper I'll be using just for the inside, and it's kind of a waxy tissue paper. I got it from Temu and it was listed under wrapping papers. They had a huge range, so check those out. I'm using my fingernail to mark a size on my paper, and I'll rip it with a metal ruler. Now I can apply a generous amount of glue, and I'm using a PVA wood glue for this project. I'm spreading it out very smoothly so I don't have any great big build-ups of glue anywhere, and I'll cover that whole surface that I want to decoupage. Then I'll fold that paper in half and make sure that it's lining up correctly with the edge that I'm starting from. Now I'll spread that paper out, and to help me lay that down, I'm just going to give it a bit of a spritz with water, and that'll just help to stretch the paper flat, and I'll try and work out any creases and bubbles. You'll still end up with a few, but that's all part of the charm. I'm painting on a good coat over top of that as well, and I'll allow that to dry while I work on the other side. Now the glue is dried, I can take a Stanley knife and remove any excess paper from the first 2 sides. I still have several areas of exposed paint, so I'll take smaller pieces of paper, repeating the process until I've covered all of the painted areas. So yay, now I can pull out these maps that I've been saving for ages, and I wanted just the right project for them. They are copies of some really old maps. This one here I'll cut down in halves and I'll use it for the sides. And I'm going to be fussy cutting around any of the exterior detail of this little case. For instance, around those brown corners. And I'm going to leave those reinforced edges showing, with the old green of the suitcase and those little studs all the way around. Now I'll go ahead and decoupage those pieces on in the same way that I did the inside. This time I found it a little easier to use a plastic spatula to push the air bubbles out and to really squeeze that glue flat underneath. Now for the top, I've got another one of these beautiful map replicas, and this one's got a bit more colour in it. I'll go ahead and decoupage this using the same process. Now I've finished decoupaging my maps to my case, I'm taking some antiquing wax. Once my case was dry, mixed it with water, and I'm going to apply that to the very edge of my case. I ended up changing to a sponge brush. It was easier to blend in the edges of that wax on all of those outer edges. I'm focusing on all the areas which would have naturally aged. I think this technique is bringing all of that new work that I've done back to the age of the case itself, so it doesn't look too new. Now that the case is dry again, I'll take some Mod Podge and I'm going to seal the entire case. I'm also going to cover that little stain on the inside with a little piece of the map. I'll add some more embellishments later, but I'll take that Mod Podge and I'm going to use it as a sealer because it has a varnish content in it. I'll be doing a generous coat over all of the decoupage paper, over all of that metal trim you can see around the top of the suitcase, and over all of the other untreated areas. This will put a protective coating on it. Now to add some final touches, I'm going to add the label that came on the map and I'll decoupage that onto the front. Then I've got a group of stamps. I'll pick a few of these out. They've come from a stamp collector's book and I'll show you that a little bit later on in the video. And I'm just going to apply these randomly around the base. I still have to apply Mod Podge all over the underside of the suitcase. There is a bit of wear and tear there on the original cover of the suitcase. The Mod Podge really helps to seal and protect those worn and porous edges, and it helped to enrich the colour. Now I'm going to add some black paint to any imperfections on those corner pieces and just feather the colour out. And that's it for my beautiful little suitcase. I love it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Alright, on to project number 2. I had this old clipboard that I got from a thrift store for 50 cents. I struggled to get the tape and the sticker off this clipboard, so I sanded it instead. And I used a sanding block with 120 grit sandpaper on it. I'll clean away the dust residue with a wet wipe. And I'll be using this old tramping map for this project. I've cut it to size and I'm just going to work out how to cut around the clipboard at the top because I don't want to remove it off the board. And once I was confident I had the shape right, I took the scissors and cut the shape out that will surround the hardware. To get it over the clip, I just cut a slit in the very top. Now I can decoupage that on, and I'm just using a standard PVA glue. I'm spreading a nice generous even layer because that paper is quite thick. I'll use my little plastic spatula to push out any excess glue and any air bubbles. And it's left a little bit of excess paper all the way around the edges, so once that was dry I took my sandpaper and sanded in a downward motion until the strips of paper came away from the edge of the clipboard. Now that's created a perfect looking edge all the way around. I'll add some embellishments, and I'm taking bits and pieces of my other maps that I've used in these projects. And here's the stamp collecting book that I was talking about. I've been able to use this for multiple projects and it cost me $1 from the thrift store. I'll select some of these stamps and cut them out. Next I'm taking some instant coffee and I'm just using about 1/4 teaspoon with a little bit of hot water, and I'm just watering that down and adding it to some Mod Podge to get a sepia toned sealant. I'll put some on the face of my embellishments just so you can see the difference in the colour. Using this will give my project that aged look that I'm going for, because I want this to look very vintage and old. I just popped my sanding block under my clip so that I could raise it while I glue underneath. While that's drying, I'll take my embellishments and a little bit of antiquing wax on a sponge. I've removed most of the wax off the sponge and I'm just going to gently apply edging to all of my embellishments, and that'll just make the very edges of each of those look much older. I'll do the same to the edges of the clipboard and around the clip at the top. Now I'll take all of my embellishments and I'm going to apply them just to my own taste. You could use some lovely floral transfers at this point and make it more of a floral design. You could use some stencils, you could use some stamps. Do whatever feels good for you and meets the aesthetic that you're going for. I'm going to use some stamping on this, and I'll take a text stamp and apply my ink to it while it's flat on the table, and I'm going to put that in 3 different spots on my clipboard. I always use 2 hands for my stamps, and I hold down one area while I'm ensuring that I have applied pressure to every other area. Now that my board looks so vintage, I've noticed that the clip's looking a little bit too new. So I took some black paint and I covered the clip. It had some texture on it, so that when I wiped it away, it left a little bit of a staining in black all over the clip, which gave it a beautiful aged look. Now this project's finished. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. And last but not least, project number 3. I'm taking a paper shopping bag for this one. In New Zealand we don't use plastics in supermarkets anymore, so we end up with lots of these in our drawers at home. I'll take another one of these tramping maps, and I'll cut a piece for the front, and I'm just going to leave a recess so that there's a border showing a little bit of the bag around the outside of my map. Then I'll cut another one to match. I also want to cut a piece for the very bottom of the bag, and that's really just to reinforce it and make it a bit stronger. And while I was thinking about reinforcing the bag, I thought a strip around the very inside that goes across the straps that hold the bag up would be a good idea as well. It'll go around the inside top of the bag. Next I have some folk art paint in the colour Hydrangea. It's just an acrylic paint, and I'm just going to paint the very edges around the bag and the sides, everywhere where the map will not be covering. Next I'm taking a leftover turquoise paint in an acrylic, and I'm just going to add that to my purple paint, and I'll use my brush once it's dry to blend that colour into the purple. Of course I want to make this look a little bit vintage, so I'm going to take some more of my antique wax. Can't seem to live without this stuff. And I'll apply a tiny bit to my sponge, offload most of it, and then go around the edges gently and just give the edges a little bit of age. I'll do this to both the maps and the edges of the paper bag. Alright, now I can decoupage my matte pieces on, and I'm just using a chippy brush for this, being generous with the glue because again this is thicker paper, and I'll glue those into place. This is going to be a gift bag. I thought I'd make something a little bit more unique for a gift that I am going to give one of my friends. I'll use my little plastic spatula again to press out all the bubbles and the glue, and give it a coat all around the edges. I'm not going to bother going all the way over the map, just to make sure that those edges are all sealed down. I'm also applying that strip to the inside to help to reinforce those handles and hold them securely in place. Then my old cat Zipper decided he would visit me on the kitchen table. What's interesting is he hasn't done this in 14 years, and then today he decided to climb on the table for the first time. He communicates with me with that little tail. He likes to tap it on me when he's close. So it appears that once wasn't enough, so it must have started something. Didn't like the glue on his paw. Okay, next I want to make a little label, and this is off my tissue box. Take another little piece of map and decoupage that onto my little piece of card and just allow that to dry. Now I'll paint the other side with that wisteria acrylic paint and add a little bit of the turquoise blue into the middle and blend that in. Okay, now I can trim that excess paper off my tag now that it's dry. I'll take one of my stamps, and this one says best wishes to you. Lay that flat on the table and apply some of my ink pad to the surface. I'm checking in the light to ensure that I've got ink in every area, and then I'll hold down one side of the stamp while I ensure that I'm pressing down and applying pressure to the rest of it. I'll antique wax the edges. I'll take my little hole punch and put a hole in the top. Then I'm taking a couple of bits of ribbon and a piece of string, and I will hang my tag from this. To attach it to my bag, I'm going to place it on a piece of wood and cut 2 slots just either side of the handle, and I'll thread my ribbons through the slots. I'll take those ends again and I'm going to thread them back through so that they end up at the front of the bag. I tied the ribbon in a bow and trimmed the edges off neatly. Then I tied the twine into a bow, and I'm just going to burn off the frayed ends. And that's my gift bag ready for me to put my goodies in for my friend. Now I'd love to know what you think of this one. So that's it from me, folks, for this week. Thanks so much for watching. I'm really excited about next week's video because I'm off on a journey on a ship to the North Island. I'll be in Wellington and I'm going to feature a performing art like no other. It blew my mind. I'll put a little sneak peek in at the end of the video, but please subscribe so you don't miss it. Bye for now.